it's just a little bit harder to catch sometimes. A lot of vacations and trips, but we're glad to have you guys here today. So fourth gear, and then you said you're with Inland, which owns
Gateway.
That's kind of your major property.
Yeah, that's my main focus.
Very good. And we want to spend some time today on blogging, the power of blogs and its effectiveness. And we'll talk a little bit about social media, some of the principles behind it first. John has presented numerous times. Always does an excellent job, and was an early adopter of social media studio. As a couple of years ago, he began to take notice, and since then we've put together an educational series. We've advised numerous clients on social media, and we've actually been able to put together kind of a good portfolio in that regard. So as we go along, since we do have a smaller group, feel free if you want to get some food as we go, or questions if you want to stop and discuss. Feel free, but other than that, we're excited to be with you today and try and get started.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Yeah, I always do this at the beginning. I talk about principles just because I'm a principle-based guy. It's good to, before you get into the meat, to talk about some of the things that are going on and help you understand at least where we're coming from. So Phil's going to drive for me, so we'll try to stay on the same page and get to the right slide that we want to go into. Just really quick, I always drop this in at the beginning. If you need to get my contact information, feel free. You can just text dyejo, dyejo, to 50500. It's a service that actually sends that information directly to your cell phone. So I found that's a really good way to share information. And we're still into the business card thing, but this is a good way to do it and get it quite quickly. You can just save it to your mobile phone that way. I always start with this slide. There is no silver bullet. In marketing and advertising, a lot of people are looking for the holy grail, and social media seems to have caught on recently, and it's the wave right now. But Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever the medium, there is no silver bullet. It's got to be a truly integrated approach, and I believe that. So what we'll share with you today is just one tool in the toolbox, but I believe it's an important one and one that can really help. If you're familiar with Stephen Covey, you've probably heard about the circle of influence versus the circle of concern. And we know social media can help broaden that circle of influence more than the circle of concern. And that's one area that I believe is integral in understanding about social media, is the viral capability of this. Once you find something that you find to be of value, you share it with others. If they find it to be of value, they share it with others, etc., etc. So it's the viral capability. So as we look at this circle of influence, what you can do something about, we know we can influence certain things based on certain variables that are within our control. Well, what that allows you to do then is to broaden that into your circle of concern and help you expand that into what you care about. So again, it's the viral capability that I think is so compelling about social media. Those of you that are involved in marketing know that people do not want to be sold to. They want to interact and be heard. And again, that's another thing that social media allows you to do. And blogging, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's one thing that it does allow you to do, whereas Web 1.0 traditionally is seen as information or brochureware, that it was basically you giving information to someone else. When we talk about Web 2.0 principles, it's usually the interaction between two sides. And so blogs are very integral in that. We'll talk more about that. But with all of social media, it allows you to listen first, then to respond, and finally engage. And that's where I believe the true magic happens, is when those three things occur. Another thing that people should understand with social media, you cannot control the conversation. You can participate in it. If you're an early adopter, you can control maybe more of the conversation than you could if you were a late adopter. But again, it's that democratization of information. It's that level playing field that it creates, I think, that is so unique and so compelling about this medium. The 4 Ps, many of us are familiar with the 4 Ps of marketing: product, price, place, and promotion. And I believe that these will always be around. There's no doubt that these are principles and these are things that will always be around, but I believe that social media gives way to the 3 R's. It creates, as long as what you give is relevant, real, responsive, then it'll create the 4th R, which is relationship. And that's what we're all after, right? As marketers, as people trying to create communities, that's what we're after, is the relationship. And once we create that, then we start to see the dial move. One thing I really believe is this as well. Although social media is a one-to-many broadcast, I get on my Twitter account, I have 600 followers, I tweet something, it could hit all 600 if the stars align. At the end of the day, it probably won't, but at the end of the day, it's that one-to-one relationship where you really make a difference. So it's that interaction, I guess is what I'm saying. You can't just blow things out in social media or on a blog or anything and expect to make a difference. It's that interaction that you have with people and all said and done. Okay, now we'll dig right in with our presentation on blogs now that we've set the groundwork with some principles. So what is a blog? The traditional definition, it's a web-based journal powered by a self-publishing tool that enables the authors to regularly and easily update the content. Okay, blog obviously came from weblog, which was a short contraction for blog when that term was created. So again, it's something that I would say, it's not probably as pristine or as official as a company's corporate website or other web properties, but it has the ability to do some things for them that a lot of times I don't think websites can do. And we'll talk more about that. Now the big question is this: why should businesses blog? A lot of times we hear about personal blogs and people writing about their families and getting information out to other people, and that's all good and well. But why should businesses blog? The biggest reason is we know that no one listens anymore to sanitized marketing messages. I mean, we've become so, it's so easy to ignore the stuff that you see and you're bombarded by so many marketing messages every day. Blogging allows the real you to come forth and to show the character of your company. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's another way to create a message that people will listen to. If you find the right person in your organization to blog about your products or services, you'll brand your company as authentic and knowledgeable. And that's extremely important to draw people to your message through being authentic and knowledgeable. And blogs allow you an opportunity to do that.
And I just, before we go on, another reason to blog is even intercompany. Depending on how big your business is and where you're located. I had a conversation with a gentleman that was over a certain division for Wells Fargo bank, and they, one of their concerns was, there were several thousand employees under that, and he said there's a real disconnect between kind of the underlines, those that kind of did the work and those that kind of directed the work, and kind of a bad perception of the executives and what they did or what kind of the company protocol or new vision or things that were coming out. And they said that was a great way they saw to integrate blogging, where it was kind of a closed company blog, and they said that really helped drive the conversation. People can interact with executives and being able to kind of create more vision in that regard. So that's another good way to use blogs.
That's a good point. That's one area that we don't cover a lot in the material today is you have your outward facing blogs and then your behind the intranet type blogs, and a lot of people do utilize it that way. Roger L. Firestone, he wrote a book called Leading on the Creative Edge, and we've got a lot of principles for this out of that book, and we'll go through a few of these, but as we talk about some of the pluses and some of the different things about and the potential and finally the concerns, the PPC of blogging, this is kind of what we're going to talk about. Some of the pluses, we'll start with those.
Oh, I think we may have a late joiner.
Okay. Hey,
how are you?
Good.
Good.
You want
Come on
to?
in and
I'll
grab
stay.
some food if you'd
Okay,
like.
thank you.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if we had started yet.
Oh.
You look like you have.
We're at the beginning now.
We're right at the
Okay,
cusp, so you
excellent.
haven't missed too much, so you're just fine. And we have a seat for you here if you'd
Oh,
like.
okay, thank
That way you don't have to turn
you. Okay.
all the way around.
Perfect.
So Phil, go ahead and hit the next one if you would real quick. So some of the pluses that we're looking at, the customers will learn about your company in a